How to say no without feeling bad. That's not good enough for me. I want you to say no and feel fantastic. Every time you say no to the things you don't want, prefer, or choose, you're actually changing the world for a better place. I'm going to tell you exactly how at the end of this video. We live in a wild world full of predators and their victims. We all know what predators are, but what makes you more likely to become a victim is one very important characteristic: compliance. Now let's find what's the definition of a compliant person. Someone who willingly obeys, follows instructions, and yields to the wishes of others. Core traits: obedient, yielding, accommodating, and unassertive. In simpler terms, if you're a compliant person, you're an easy prey. Are compliant people weak though? Not at all. They're polite, empathetic, kind, considerate, respectful, hospitable, and sadly, self sacrificing. It's not difficult to find someone like this to prey on. In fact, all of us are like that. How many places and events have you gone to and spent your money on just out of politeness? How many times have you eaten something just because you didn't want to be rude? Don't worry, it's not your fault. We've all been programmed since the day we were born to be polite and considerate. Do I mean you should be rude? Otherwise, you're more likely to be victimized. Yeah, I am. When you start saying no, you're going to be perceived as a rude, inconsiderate, and selfish person by a lot of people, mainly by predators and narcissists, and by some decent people as well. How dare you say no, you rude, inconsiderate, selfish piece of sugar? You don't want people to think you're inconsiderate. You don't want to hurt other people's feelings. You don't want to make people feel rejected. That's why saying no feels so bad. But every time you say no, you're potentially disabling a predator from victimizing someone. That's someone being you. Do you think predators go after weak people? No. In fact, they love polite, self sacrificing, and considerate people like you and I. Because it's easy. May I offer you a drink? May I touch you? Can I give you a lift home? Can I walk you to your door? Can I sit next to you? Can I have your phone number? I know not everyone that asks you these questions is a predator or a potential predator, but here's the problem. You have a lifelong practice of saying yes to these things out of politeness, or out of duty, or out of anxiety. So, what makes you think when the person in front of you is a potential predator or a narcissist, can you say no then? Can you say no? How? Do you want me to test you? How many group chats are you a part of? How many random people have your phone number? Did you want them to have it? Or was it rude to not join the group chat? Or did you just feel uncomfortable not joining the group chat? I understand. Saying no gives you anxiety, but I wanted to give you a dopamine rush, as it should. Saying no should feel good. All you need to do is practice, and practice in a way that it will give you a dopamine rush. If you're worried about sounding rude, just say thank you and smile. Can I offer you a drink? No, thank you. Can I give you a lift? No, thank you. Can I sit next to you? I'd rather sit by myself. I think it's time to change our perspective about saying no. It will come across as rude and it will upset some even good people, but it's not illegal. No one's gonna die. You're not gonna go bankrupt. The world is not going to end. No disaster is gonna happen if you just start saying no a bit more. I always say this, it's much easier to learn a new skill than it is to unlearn a skill that you've learned. So you've learned to say yes on an autopilot out of politeness or anxiety or whatever. Now you need to learn how to say no and make it feel rewarding. So it will give you a dopamine rush. So get addicted to it. Look at saying no as a skill you're about to learn and you're at the beginner's level. So you have to start light. Start saying no to random things at least once a day. And every time you do, make sure you take a note of it. Even better, have a diary and give yourself a star every time you say no. It could be as simple as someone saying, "Would you like an apple?" and you say, "No, thank you." I know it's simple, that's still something to acknowledge. So every time you say no and acknowledge it, your brain starts to perceive saying no as a rewarding experience and it will start getting a dopamine rush from it. That way, your brain starts to learn that saying no actually feels good. Now, instead of feeling anxious when you say no, you're going to start feeling actually rewarded. You feel happy and excited. Honestly, it's actually quite fun to say no, and it feels awful to say yes to the things that you don't want and make you feel uncomfortable. But we're so used to it. We're so used to that feeling of discomfort that it doesn't even register anymore. But if you become connected to your body every time you say yes out of obligation or politeness or whatever, anxiety, consideration, it just feels awful. And a lot of the time, you're worried about saying no because you're worried about the other person's reaction or how it makes the other person feel. But once you start practicing to say no, you realize most people actually don't mind and respect your boundaries and don't insist. And if you encounter somebody who gets really offended because you set a boundary and you said no to something that it wasn't your preference, if they get really offended and insist, that's actually a red flag. That means you made the right choice by saying no. If only you knew the joy and the high that you can experience from saying no. I can't even describe it to you. Trust me, I've done it. It's good. Who cares if they think you're rude and antisocial? This feels awesome. You get to do what you want and don't do what you don't want. And don't spend your money on something you don't want. If I had a planet, which I do, is called Planet Ruby, I don't want to would be a perfectly valid reason on that planet. And for some magical reason, the world doesn't end when you say, "No, I don't want to go." Now, let's talk about how you're going to make the world a better place once you start saying no to the things you don't want. Every time you say no to the things you don't prefer, want, or choose, you're potentially disabling a predator. You inspire other people to say no as well and have boundaries. When people see that you say no and you're polite and comfortable, they'd be inspired and they would say no to the things they don't want to say yes to. This is how the world changes. You'd be disabling potential predators, inspiring other people, and feeling awesome. Don't you just want to live in that world? Sleep on that.